let us begin the final session of our meeting tonight. Personally, I'm really excited for this workshop because today's topic is visual aids. Amplify, magnify, and intensify the impact of your message with
let me stop you
video.
here. You know why? Because I know I'm the last person standing between you and the door and a good night's sleep. And you know, as introductions in Toastmasters go, right? The more the introducers speak, the more expectations you have. But thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you.
And I'm very excited and I'm really thankful to be back here again. The last time I was here was probably in 2018. During one of the district level conferences or events. I see some familiar faces. I don't know whether you remember me or not, but I remember you. Maybe because I've been here only once, I will try to come more often.
Okay, yeah. So let me do my part here to hand it over to you. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for your self-introduction. Let me get everyone right. Okay, to put. Okay, so very quickly, few salient points. He's best known for his illustrations on Instagram and LinkedIn, okay, and he works with leaders and businesses to elevate the power of their messages so that they can communicate more effectively with their audience. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome our project speaker of the evening, Chin Jun Han.
And now the introduction still come out. You know, I've enjoyed today's meeting, and particularly Brian, you brought up something, you reminded me of something, and in advance, I hope you enjoy it, and I know that you will remember your proposal to your girlfriend, future wife. That will happen. But you reminded me of 2021 when I dated this absolutely stunning girl for the first time. Her name is called Debbie. Now, and as first dates go, you ask the question, what do you do for fun during your weekends? And I thought that was my moment because I very proudly said, for the last 6 months, I have been building my blog. I read and write about the ideas I learned from books around the world. And what do you think happened? She asked, you read, you write, so tell me about the previous book you read. Recommend a book for me. Now, raise your hands if you've ever read a book and then proceeded to immediately forget everything in the book. Has that ever happened to you? Okay, luckily, I'm not the only one, but we laugh now, but can you feel my pain back then? Because how can I tell people that I'm a reader, writer, and content creator if I cannot remember what I was going through for the last 6 months? It's not just the last book that I forgot, it's everything. Something had to change, right? And what do you think I changed?
Girlfriend.
You're right, she's not my girlfriend now. When I first told my friend about this story and asked him this question, what do you think I changed? He said, you changed the conversation topic. But it was about 2 to 3 months later that I found this thing that changed my life. I was browsing on LinkedIn. It's a job or professional based social media. I was scrolling because I was bored, and when you are scrolling social media, just to fill up time, you don't pay attention. You just flick your fingers and just wait for something to catch your eye. And this one post it caught my eye, it stopped my scroll, and got me to go back for a second look. Because what do you expect to see on LinkedIn? You see a lot of wordy posts, you see a lot of pictures of people at work, maybe standing in front of an audience or clients and things like that. You also see professionally designed slides, properly designed posters, all very neat and nice looking stuff. But this picture was very different. It's hand-drawn, very childish, very ugly to be honest. A few stick figures, a few lines, few words, a few shapes, and brightly colored with pastel colors, something that you might see on Facebook but not on LinkedIn. So that really stood out to me and got me to go back for a second look. But what was really more important is that I understood the message behind the picture in the time it took to scroll into view and out of my phone. So fast. And that's really important because everyone who posts on LinkedIn has something valuable to say. But how do you capture people's attention? If not for her, I wouldn't have gone back to click and read the long article. I wouldn't have benefited from the content. I would have gone to her profile and looked at all her posts. And really post after post and go through, she really blew my mind. Because, by the way, this lady, her name is Liz Foslien, Lizfoslien. Now she talks about emotions at the workplace. Whether you have conflicts or good times, she talks about it. She talks about how we can, as employees or as managers, can take those strategies and make our work experience better. So I highly recommend you following her on either LinkedIn or Instagram. So as I go through her content, post after post, I realize it's not by chance that her picture caught my attention. It's a system where you can take deep, important messages and convey in 2 seconds and create that emotional connection with the audience. And I know that that's something I want to do, no longer just to write words and put it on a blog where no one reads, but how do I use this method to impact more people? That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I will be bringing to you as well. So today I'll be sharing 2 visual communication methods in what I call the M&Ms, not the chocolate, but 2 methods that will be as sweet as those chocolates. And while we go through the M&Ms, we will look at a method to generate as many ways as possible for you to talk about a single topic, so you'll never run out of things to say. That's what Aaron actually talked to me about when we did our planning meeting. He said, what if I run out of things to say? I've been a Toastmaster for don't know how many years. I have run out of experiences to talk about. Today you will have the answer to that problem. And at the end of it, I will also share one very simple psychology-based method that will help you instantly and automatically engage with your audience, engage their feelings, because feelings are what help people learn better and make better decisions, and that's what you're going to be able to use to influence your audience, whether at work, at home, or with your friends. So let's begin. I'd like to talk about this idea that good things take time. Now you might be wondering, how does this relate to pictures? It will make sense in a moment. But 2 months after I left my job to build this content creation and communication business, I was very scared. Now raise your hands if you've used a to-do list. Raise your hand if you have to do things in life. Some of you are looking at me like, do things for someone else. I will just sit here and people bring the things to me. But anyway, to-do list. At the end of the day, many times I felt like, wow, after all the effort, I've only gotten so few things done. And is all my effort worth it? And that's what I felt about running my own business 2 months after leaving my job. And I spoke with my coach. Her name is Mary. I told her that, is this the right move? Should I go and find another job? Because it doesn't seem to be working. Now, I have this passion. It's good as a part-time side hustle, but as a full-time job, is this going to work? I was very worried. And she told me one thing that I have used over and over again to help me calm down when things don't go well. And is that, what did she say? She said, don't overestimate what you can do in 1 day, and then underestimate what you can do in 10 years. Right? Because each day we can only do so much, but over time it's going to accumulate to a lot. So good things really will have to take time. Now I've shared this idea with you with a partial personal story, but I can also share the same idea with a picture. The only difference is that with a personal story, whether it's written or spoken, it takes me maybe 2 minutes just now. But here with this picture, you can probably get it in 2 seconds. Let's be generous, 10 seconds. It's way faster. With just a few words and a few lines, you can get the message across. And the beauty of visuals is that it is not tied to me. You have your own personal stories of good things that happen to you after a long period of patience and persistence. Take your story, put it with this visual, and you will amplify the impact of your message. So that's a very useful thing about visuals. It's agnostic, it's independent of context. And now we come to the first M in your M&Ms. This is the second way of showing things with a very abstract graph. But how do you make it more relatable? And this is what I call the metaphorical thinking, metaphorical visuals. And it comes to you in the form of 2 questions. You can write this down, because if you practice these 2 questions, if you ask yourself this question and answer it enough times, you'll be really quick at finding ideas, and you have a lot of things to say about a single topic. Right? And the questions are, how else can I say this? What else can represent this idea? Right? I promise you, when I started, it took a while for me to get those ideas going, but really quickly, you're going to get ideas in a snap. When you stand here in front of a table topics master, you don't know what to say, ask yourself this question. What other things can I talk about to fill up the time? what other ways or metaphors in my life that people already understand that I can use to tap on the common knowledge. And let me give you an example, because questions don't tell you the answers, but here's some examples. Bamboo trees. I'm curious, raise your hands if you are aware of the life cycle of bamboo trees. No? Right? If you observe bamboo trees, the moment they poke its head out of the ground, it can grow really fast. It just takes 5 weeks to grow up to 90 feet. Now that's very abnormal for plants, not just bamboo. Because how do plants grow so tall so quickly? And as impatient Singaporeans, impatient people living in an impatient society, we want results very quickly. But if you're the farmer, you know that those 5 weeks of rapid results will not have happened if not for 5 long years of taking care of the land, watering it, fertilizing it. Because all the growth in the first 5 years is invisible, it doesn't show anything above ground, but everything is happening underground. Right? And if the farmer had quit any time in those 5 years, do you think the tree would have a chance to grow up so quickly in the last 5 weeks? Quite unlikely. Right? So good things really take time. And this is how I would display it in the form of a picture. You draw a bamboo tree and then you point to the parts of it. Do you want the tall tree? If you want it, you have to plant the seeds. That's one way of exploring this, and it came from the question, what else can represent this idea? Right? I have a couple more examples to show you, but I can see some doubt in your eyes. What if I'm not so creative? What if I don't have so many ideas? I'm going to prove to you that this method works, this question works. Or rather, you are going to prove it to yourself. Your friends around you are going to prove it to you that this method works. Because what we're going to do now is to take 1 minute and you turn to your neighbor on your left or right, just one neighbor, and use these questions to talk about the idea that good things take time. And at the end of the minute, we'll come back and hear about your ideas. Is that alright? Alright, let's go. 1 minute.
I think that's a flame there.
Alright, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. I love how all the discussions are going. It sounds like you guys have good ideas. So good things take time. Good things take time. What other ways can we talk about this? Anyone has any metaphors or ideas in mind? Or even if you don't have, tell me what your friend said. Anyone? Yes, Mary.
I was hearing that we all often go to gym, then next day we want to see ourselves as six pack. We want result fast because we always in this society where we have a lot of in social media, we see a lot of people having go to this vacation, having this body shape. But like you say, good things take time. It's not the result itself, but there are people who go through it every day, work out every day so that they get this. So it's a good reminder for that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. You know how I would draw that? I love the gym and the abs idea and the muscles idea. I will show if I were to draw it. First picture on the left, and I'll draw 3 pictures. The first picture on the left, day 1, normal body. 1 month later, probably the same body, maybe slightly better. 1 year later, that's where you see the results, or even 10 years later. And that contrast is how you show good things take time. So thank you very, very much, Barry. Do we have any ideas over here? You had a very good one. You got to share it.
Okay. Yeah. So I just draw the graph. Basically on this
y-axis, vertical axis.
On the x-axis is time. So basically I can't draw as well like the muscle thing. So I just draw present. It just gets bigger over time to illustrate that good things takes time. Yeah.
Wow, I like that. Your gifts get better over time. Yeah. It's like your gifts, your talents, right? If the more you practice it, the better you get. You guys definitely can relate to that as Toastmasters. The more speeches you give, the better you speak. Yeah. So, I'm sure all of you have some ideas. It might take time to get the hang of it, but then again, good things take time. I'm going to show you 2 more examples just to show that this is possible. And one way to do this is through food, popcorn. I don't know about you, but I've never made popcorn myself. I like to buy them at the movie theaters, but I don't cook at home. But I know that when you cook popcorn, for the first few minutes, nothing will happen. But it needs a little bit of build up to the right heat and pressure for the corn to suddenly pop. right? And if you were doing it for the first time, maybe you'll be doubting, hey, am I missing out any steps? Why is nothing happening, right? But if you wait a little bit, you get your very tasty popcorn. And sometimes, you can speed things up by adding more heat, adding more pressure. But what if there are times when you cannot? You can water your plants, you can fertilize it, but the plant is going to take its own sweet time to flower. So all you can do is to give it time, you have to be patient. But at the end of it, you will still have the good things that you want. So, and all of these really come from the two questions, right? How else can I say this, and what else can represent this idea? Now we've moved from ideas to items being the metaphors, right? And it started with ideas. The other question that Aaron asked me is that, what if our members have no ideas to talk about, and then they tell our VPE that I cannot deliver a speech because I got nothing to say?
Not true.
Not true, right? Not true, because there's so many ways you can inspire yourself. The answer to that is to go in the reverse direction. Use items, everyday items, to inspire you. Right? And we just reverse the direction of the question. You can write this down. What else can this item teach me? What can this item teach me? And then you ask yourself, what else, what else, what else? Because inspiration is around us all the time. If we slow down enough and look at it and think about it long enough, we will find lessons in it. Let me give you some examples in the form of water. Water, half of you have water on the table in cups or bottles. But water can teach us a lot of things. Like day 1 and day 100. Every drop makes an ocean. If we discard all the small accumulations, then we won't have the eventual big amount. Right? So, good things take time also applies to this idea. Another lesson that water can teach us is, well, maybe not water, but ice. When you're thirsty and you have a cup of ice, you feel like, I'm still thirsty, I cannot drink it. But if you wait long enough, the ice will melt, and then you have a glass full of water. And then you will have a nice drink. But the only problem in Singapore is that it's so hot that when I have my iced Milo, very quickly my iced Milo becomes diluted Milo. One more example. Optimism and pessimism. Is the cup half full or half empty? Here's another example from water. Right? If you ask yourself the same question, what else can this item teach me? I'm sure you'll find more ideas. So, what do you think is going to happen right now? You're going to give it a try. Take it for a test drive. So again, another 1 minute for you. Turn to your neighbor on your left or right and talk about what can water teach you, what other lessons that you can come out from it. Right? Take 1 minute, let's go. Okay, everyone. Lovely and lively discussion. Seems again like maybe you warmed up a little bit after the first round of questions. It does take some time to warm up, and if you're not used to being creative, it takes a while, but you'll get there. So now I'd just like to ask anyone who has an idea about water and other ways to explain this idea.
Water doesn't have much chemical component, it only has H2O. So like this, our life will not have many activities, just make like a happiness and do things organized. So everything will be alright, everything will understand you.
Wow, very science way there.
You're gonna sign up and deliver that speech next. Yeah, I like that idea. I've never thought of it. Water is essential for life and it's so plain. Maybe we don't need so many things, right? Reminds me of minimalism, and I'm sure there's a way to explain that. Yeah. Aaron.
Bruce Lee once said, right?
I know you say that.
No, not me. No, Bruce Lee's point is essentially, one of the quotes is, he's a long quote, but essentially his point is to be like water, right? So, you be like water making a way through the cracks, right? Do not be assertive, but adjust to the object and you shall find a way around or through it. So it's like water essentially takes the shape and form of whatever it is. So we just need to be
adaptable, right?
Yeah, adaptable.
Yeah, and you can, the way I would draw it is to draw different containers of different shapes and sizes, and you show that water can adapt to every shape. That's a good one, but I wish you didn't cheat. That one is Bruce Lee, not Aaron King.
I thought about that, but I just wanted to use a quotation
to raise the credibility. Smart choice. we can take one more
I
idea.
will share something very
Yes.
relevant. Water turning into cloud And then later then the thunderstorm. To get yourself ready with umbrella before the thunderstorm comes. It's just an idea.
And it works. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works. You can tell a lot of stories from that.
Yeah.
It's a whole cycle. Thank you very much. Yeah. So to again, just to share with you that this question can give you endless ideas. Maybe you have thought of this, maybe you haven't. Right? Is the cup half? It's a little bit small, but is the cup half full or half empty? That's the common question that people ask. But should we really focus on that, because we can always top up the water? And I have another visual where it shows all the other beverages here, your Milo, your coffee, your tea, your beer, your wine. So you don't just have to concern yourself with one cup of water, you can have more choices, expand and broaden your perspective. Another one, patience and impatience. I don't know whether you have used high-powered hose before, but when I was trying to fill a pail with high-powered hose, I thought that it's going to be very fast. But what really happened is that all the water spilled out, and I only collected very little. So pour very patiently, and you collect a whole pail or a whole cup of water. And you know, this is a very common question that I hear, and somebody mentioned that just now as well. What if I'm not an artist? I can't draw all those things. How is this going to be relevant for me? First of all, metaphors, you can say it. You guys have already said it when I asked you about the examples that you discussed. So that's one way to use it. You can paint the picture without showing it. You just say it and then put it in people's minds. The second way to do this is the second M of the M&Ms. What I call the mathematical visuals, because sometimes in meetings, whether it's at work or with friends, you just want to have that visual experience, to draw it out in the moment. You don't have to be limited by your lack of artistic talent. All you need to do is to draw very simple lines and shapes. You've already seen that in the form of a graph. Now I actually have a lot to share with you about the graphs, how you can use the three basic types of graphs to explain different types of processes and relationships. But I want to focus on the emotional engagement part after this. So what I've done is to put the whole guide that I have on graphs into a PDF 70 pages, full of words and pictures. I put it at the end of the session where you can download it. So you can get to see that. And after all, line graphs, bar graphs, Venn diagrams, these are things that you've learned in your secondary school. So you intuitively will know how to pick it up. But I just want to say this thing about graphs. Oops. One thing about graphs, we are very well trained in providing proof, displaying data at work. Because how do you get your proposals approved? You have to show that you've done your homework. How do you know that, how do your bosses or your stakeholders know that what you're saying is correct? You have to show like the research data and things like that. But very often we are so occupied with providing the proof that we forget why we provide the proof. And the reason you showed all those numbers and charts and figures is really to support your position. Now, let me just illustrate this by showing you about happiness, the topic of happiness. Did you know that children laugh about 300 times a day, on average, according to some research? And they know they are laughing right now.
301.
301. Yeah. And compared to adults, how much do you laugh? Children laugh 17.5 times more than the typical adult. Right? If I left this here, and very often I see that in speeches, in workplace presentations, they give the number and then they move on. But there is a gap. What do the numbers mean? What do the numbers mean? Would it be more helpful if I showed you a graph without numbers, but to highlight that really children laugh a lot more, and you can be happier if you learn the strategies that children have, or learn to be like your younger self again? I think this would be a lot more powerful. And of course, you support your message with all the evidence, numbers, data, graphs, charts, figures, tables. Put it in your appendix. But one thing you can do on top of that is to put in graphs that explain the ideas. Because if you throw numbers at your audience, what you're going to do is to numb them to your message. So don't give the information, give the implication. Tell us what it means so that we don't have to do so much brain work. Right? So this, by the way, is bar graph, is the second type of graph. The rest of the information, the deep dive of that will be in the PDF that you can get at the end of the session. Now, graphs. Graphs are really useful at simplifying and explaining ideas. You can draw it in the moment, no need talent. But it's a little bit boring. So I want to show you how I've managed to build up a decent number of audience online just by drawing some graphs half the time, right? And it's really just to make it a little bit more human. Now, have you ever cried when you watch a movie or a show? You know, it's a bit touching. Yeah, you cry. It's like the ninja slicing the onion next to you. And the way to do that is to make it human. And in English language, you have this device or this method called personification, which is to give human characteristics to non-human things. You can give human behavior to, let's say, a water bottle, a pen on the table, things like that, right? And a boring graph like that explains the idea in an abstract way. With just one simple modification, you can make your audience feel like they are watching a conversation by literally drawing a conversation. Now, it's just a simple modification, 2 speech bubbles and two lines that people say. But I've heard people come to me and say, wow, I really felt like the person on the left, you know, will this thing ever work out? Am I wasting time and effort? But then also on other projects or endeavors, I felt like the other guy on the right, I've made it after a long time. But if you notice, when people tell me that, they always say, I felt like this guy before, I felt like that guy before, but in the picture there are no people. There's just a hint of humans there. A small, tiny reference to human beings and they can relate. And this is happening because we empathize. In psychology, there's this thing called mirror neurons in our brain. It's an automatic, what it does is create an automatic response when you see people doing certain things or feeling in a certain way, you automatically relate to them and feel like them. And when you do simple human connections kind of content like that, you make them feel as if they're watching people. That's how simple pictures can be a lot more engaging. Another way to do this is to literally put in people, stick figures. Very simple, just draw something, doesn't have to be proportionate, but you can feel the emotions. This guy looks tired, and this guy is jumping in joy, very happy. Right? And if you want to make it simple, if you tell me, oh, but I don't know how to draw stick figures, that's okay. Just draw a smiley face, just draw a sad face. It works. Trust me, it works. I've tested it before. Yeah. And if you don't know how to draw a smiley face, come to me later. I'll give you 1-to-1 tuition. So, okay, I see the red light. Now, before we close, I'd just like to say this. You've seen 3 things today. First is the first M, metaphorical thinking, with the question of how else can I say it, what else can represent this idea. And use those questions, you'll never run out of content to talk about. The second M, mathematical visuals, I hardly talk about that, but it's existing knowledge you've already picked up from school and from life. And you'll get the PDF from there. And you learn that number 3, just by hinting at human interactions and behavior, you can create the indirect emotional connection. It's automatic. Your audience won't feel it. It will not feel like a tactic. It will just be there. They will feel the message coming from you. So before we close, I think I have time to take one question, 1 or 2 questions. One short question if anyone has. Great, fantastic. Because then I have time to talk about one more thing. People ask me, I'm not an artist, how do I draw that? And if I showed you my sketchbook, it's really terrible. I cannot show this to the world. How I drew that is through a very free and easy to use software, and I only use 1% of the tools to do it. Wow. Yeah. So anyone can do it. When I showed this content to my online audience, there's a consultant in healthcare. I believe it's healthcare. She told me I actually do the same things but using PowerPoint. Yeah. She could create those illustrations almost exactly the same, just by using tools in PowerPoint. So you don't need a lot of tools to do it. The main thing is the thinking behind it. And before we close, I'd just like to do one more thing. I want to make sure that everybody has taken something away from this session. So once again, turn to your neighbor. In just 20 seconds this time, right? Tell your friend what you've picked up today, and then we'll wrap up. Right, 20 seconds, let's go.
I think the idea of bridging the items into the identity in order can bridge a lot of different
I think
things lah. One I think imagery is always very powerful. So it's something I also talk about when I'm doing language learning. Because if you are able to paint pictures in someone's minds, no matter through what method, through the words you say or through the prompts you use, or even if it's like the word or this, because all this actually understand the legal message. It's very, very powerful. Also, second thing, I think the personification is important. Like you just saw a graph, like you just do simple stick figures. It may look childish if you show it in proper presentation. Even if you show it in proper presentation, they instantly can understand it. And it's more relatable. It's so such a serious meeting, just insert that.
Alright, welcome back.
Sort of.
Let's wrap up today really quickly. So one or two things more to share, but before I share my final stuff, what's one thing you've taken away? Anyone can just yell it out.
How else can I say this?
Thank you very much. Anyone else? We can take one more from. Good things take time. Great. Thank you.
And then
one last one.
I think imagery is very powerful, like using objects to, because people can remember easily. Like I think my dad told me that he listened to Shenton's speech various times about basketball. So after that, a lot of people remember, like especially those masters back then. You ask them, they remember him basketball because of
Your dad.
Yeah. Wow. So it's
That's old.
yeah, so it's very powerful.
He say one.
I never say it's all. Don't put words in my mouth.
My proof that imagery is very powerful. That the story can be remembered for a very long time. And I'm going to share the QR code where you can scan and download the notes as I wrap up. And of course, it comes with a survey. So thank you very much for filling it. At the end of the survey, you get the notes. But as Aaron said, visuals are really powerful. And for the last 10 years, I've actually been trying to figure out how to communicate, because as a kid, I always get misunderstood and I have trouble understanding people. It's like people are normal and I'm a little bit abnormal. So in 2014, I joined Toastmasters to learn how to speak. After that, I graduated and do sales so that I can learn to persuade and influence. And then after I learned to write, I learned to draw. But across all the things, I realized that the most successful people, speakers, writers, leaders, they all can visualize ideas and put those ideas into people's minds. And that's what makes lasting memories, as you've just shared. Right? So today is day one. You've learned the skills. Good things take time. It may be a little bit of time to learn the message and the methods. But if you practice it, and there's one way you can do it. Write down the question, put it somewhere visible, where you'll be reminded of using those questions, and very soon you realize that it becomes natural for me to think of ideas in a moment. So it's going to be really easy, and if you put in the time and practice, and you'll see the results that you want. So that's it from me today. Thank you very much for listening.